Well, the Branded Entertainment Network, we're about being specialists in entertainment marketing, product placement, and branded content. And the reason we're hosting this event is that we feel that between our access with the Producers Guild, our 30 years of relationships with the creative community, that we can bring experts and subject matter experts to lend their point of view, their experiences, and maybe some advice and challenges about this emerging landscape that's affecting the entertainment marketing community.
I'm excited to talk about brands and brand integration because I feel like never before has there been a better opportunity to find the merger between brands and traditional mainstream entertainment. And the answer to how to do that is still yet unsolved. So I think everyone on both sides of the equation, the creative producers and the brands themselves, are trying to figure out solutions. And I think we're going to figure them out tonight.
You know, branded entertainment has been around for a while. I've been doing it since '96 or '7. But I think it's evolving to where the creators, the content creators, need to coordinate more earlier. And so I'm on a quest to convince people that they should get involved a little bit earlier in the process, because I think on a practical level, integration can work better. But I also think the entertainment industry is been arrogant and a little bit spoiled for the last, at least my career, 30 years, that we don't think we really have to do any work to market our products. And I think one of the things that's happened over the last 10 years is we're making too much stuff. There's too much out there. And the signals that the industry used to give to the audience, like, you watch in the theater, then it shows up on TV somewhere, and then there's pay TV where there's no ads, and then there's, other stuff, the audience was used to that. The audience could understand that. And so you pick when you want to see a movie and hear a story. Today it's happening all the time. You can see it all at once, you can see it over time, never comes out in theaters, and I don't think we have learned how to communicate with the consumer. And I think all of these brands actually are experts at it, right? Like if you can convince somebody to buy your brand of ketchup or soda or t-shirts or whatever, competing against a shitload of other people who are making ketchup, soda, and t-shirts, then you've obviously spent some time thinking about. And I think that's where we are with the movie business right now.
Yeah, well, we're distracted. We're constantly distracted. And I feel like getting anyone's attention on anything is very hard, harder than ever. So what used to be a rapt audience and a 30-second spot during Friends is now gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And so I think that trying to figure out a way to deliver a message through story in a different form is really the only way to reach the masses. So that inertia is, I think, at the precipice of this change in media, for sure.
I think there's an associative brand awareness thing that is becoming more and more important. And so the days of the Pepsi Challenge are different. People have their own view of Pepsi already. So now you got to convince them to change that. I think the larger question, or the question you just asked about which way does it go, right, really depends on the audience. Like, I think there's a fundamental change, and I think you see a few brands, Red Bull's probably been the best at it, that has decided that they know the kind of programming that their audience would like better than anybody else.
What's been interesting lately is, I think, especially in a fractured world where TV's changing and social's changing and digital's changing, clients are feeling more that it's very difficult to tell a full story in 15 seconds and 30 seconds. And look, brands have been great at doing that over the years, but it does limit you. We're coming in and being able to say there's freedom in being able to tell broader, more connected, longer stories.
Well, in my opinion, the brands already are content studios. Like I said to somebody the other day, I said you should sit down and do the math on how many seconds of programming Pepsi paid for last year, and put it up against how many seconds of programming Universal Pictures paid for. I'd be willing to bet it's close.
Fragmentation is a challenge for both the creators as well as the audience, as well as brands who want to participate in that space, and advertisers. I think the upside of it is that new platforms are emerging so frequently that brands are able to target their audience more efficiently, as well as creators. Creators can really find a place that their audiences really resonate with them, and that's exciting too.
Some of the big trends that we're seeing in 2017 One is we're seeing an emergence of crossover talent from YouTube influencers, digital influencers, and social influencers jumping into mainstream content. We saw it over the past couple of years with folks like Rachel Bloom jumping from creating funny YouTube videos to leading her own show on the CW with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Issa Rae likewise has a hit show on HBO right now. And it's great to see how Hollywood is tapping into emerging talent from the YouTube landscape to create that next new voice. And it's exciting because you can actually, as a brand, create those relationships with talent while they're on their upward trajectory.
At Ben, we were one of the first companies to work with influencers and helping brands integrate their content and their objectives into influencer content to get hundreds of thousands and millions of views. And our day-to-day is to really help the brands understand how to authentically integrate their brand and to be a part of the story or part of the content of the influencer in a way that's authentic, that empowers the content rather than disturbing it. A lot of brands see it as a fraction of their overall digital budget or a fraction of their overall media budget. But now that it is mainstream, that the mass audience for millennials as well as Generation Z, they're all on YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat. And if you want to get a mainstream audience, that's a younger audience specifically, you have to figure out how to communicate with these generations.
My audience is not necessarily all over the place. It's a younger generation, mostly males, focusing on fitness and food, love of food. So I like to work out, but the big thing that really gets people's attention and views is whenever I do crazy eating challenges. One of the coolest brands that I've worked with and integrations I actually did earlier this year, which I really enjoyed, was filming with Old Spice. It just worked really well with my brand. We filmed a Tough Mudder, and it was just me being, I was acting, I guess, a little bit too during the thing, but I was crushing all the obstacles, and they were giving me creative control throughout the whole thing. As I was filming, I was able to direct all the scenes.
It's a great way for the brand to empower the content as well as get true exposure. So if you were to compare metrics with influencers to any other form of online advertising, you're not going to find anything else out there that even compares. When it comes to display advertising or rich media, you're very lucky to get a 0.3 or a 0.5% click-through rate. But with influencers, on average across all of our different campaigns, which are thousands of videos, we average around a 1% to a 3% click-through rate. So you're inside the content, you're not interrupting the viewer, and you're also getting more engagement and more success as a result.
You have to kind of put your foot down, even if you're a little guy, you got to put your foot down when a brand is approaching you. You got to make sure that you do get final creative control. I think that is the #1 thing. And that is going to benefit the brand in the long run, because if you don't make the content the way you would normally make the content, they're not going to get any traffic direction towards their brand. Like if you're leaving a link in the video, people aren't going to click on it if they hate the video. They're just not.
The best advice I have for brands when working with influencers is to know their role. They need to make sure that they follow proper systems and processes to make sure they're not going in there and making too much noise. So when brands work with influencers, they need to realize, okay, they can have some input. They can have input with what their objectives are, what they want to accomplish with the content, but then they need to give up some control and look at this form of advertising different than any other way of advertising. They need to let the influencer, the individual that has created an audience of millions or even thousands of followers, and to trust them to be the creative director, where they know how to build an audience and they know how to engage with that audience. They're going to be the best person to figure out how to take your objectives and how to take your goals and to position those objectives to their audience in a way that's going to be authentic, and that's actually going to help the brand more so than the brand trying to be too involved in the creative. And when that happens, something magical takes place. The audience sees the content, they see the brand in the content, and when they realize that the brand isn't way too intrusive and the influencer is able to talk about it in their own voice, they end up, you end up seeing higher engagement than any other form of online advertising, as we discussed earlier.
I was talking to somebody the other day and saying, you wouldn't introduce yourself at a party and say what you do and tell them why it's awesome and how great. Everybody naturally says, what do you do? That's probably not even the most interesting thing you could say. You could probably say, so what's your life like? Or what are you worried about? Or what's your fear? But you would never talk about yourself from the first moment. And I think that's what we've all had problems with in pushed advertising over the years, is it's brands talking about themselves first. No, get into the conversation that people want to have and authentically be in that conversation. And to do that, you have to go back further. You have to be strategic. You have to know what your brand stands for. You have to have an authentic story, and you have to do it the right way.
I think now is a really exciting time for brands to be progressive, and there are more opportunities than ever before for brands to participate in this space. And I think that we shouldn't limit ourselves in what we're doing in entertainment.